Hey guys, Scott here with the DBD Killer Stress Tier List. This is basically a overall rough measurement of how stressful it is to play a certain killer, and we're gonna set that criteria based on basically how much effort you have to put in playing that character versus the result that you're looking for to get out of it. So that's the basic criteria I'm gonna use here. It's more of an overall vibes thing. But we'll just start off with Trapper, and I'll kind of like show you what I'm talking about. So Trapper, in terms of frustrating or stressful, I'm going to say he is going to be in the frustrating and stressful tier. The reason is, as Trapper, you have to be applying a lot of map knowledge while in the background you're losing all your generators, setting up your traps. The only thing that separates Trapper from, I think, the Hernia tier is that when you do get people in your traps, it's extremely like relieving and satisfying. So it can kind of alleviate the stress that you've had the entire match. But for the most part, you're going to be racing against the clock. You have to be putting traps in perfect areas. You have to be maintaining pressure as much as you possibly can while basically chasing nobody and setting traps up. So Trapper is going to be a pretty stressful killer to play, only slightly alleviated by the fact that when you do get people in traps, it is very, very satisfying. Wraith, I'm going to say, is in the extremely chill tier. It's why he is my main. Wraith basically doesn't have any bad maps, short of like Borgo and like, I don't know, Ormond maybe. Just those wide open maps with nothing to really hide behind. For the most part, he doesn't really have any bad maps. He has the option to hit and run if the people that you are chasing are very good or you're just unable to down them in a certain way. So he can just leave chases whenever he wants. His map control is great. He can use gen kick perks very, very easily while invisible and just patrol around and do that. Overall, Wraith is the killer I main because I find him to be incredibly relaxing. Honestly, the biggest part for me is he doesn't really have that many bad maps. I stopped maining Huntress, for example, not because Huntress got boring or so I just got tired of Huntress. It's because they kept releasing maps with more and more shit and clutter in the way, and it just became more and more frustrating over time to play killers like that. But Wraith doesn't really have any bad maps. I get an indoor map, great, I'm Wraith. I get an outdoor map, who cares? I have map control, I'm Wraith. Like, so Wraith to me is like the perfect chill killer to play. Still gets very good results, is honestly extremely good, probably like top of B tier, very solid killer, but you don't really have to learn much. It's just pretty simple. There's just going invis, coming out of invis, knowing when to uncloak. I'd say the only skill cap he has, which to be fair can be difficult to learn properly, is how to perfectly use your lunge out of a stealth, and that can be kind of hard to do properly. But other than that, very, very stress-free killer to play. Hillbilly. Hillbilly is probably the only one on this tier list that I'm going to make an exception for, because if the criteria is how much effort you have to put into the killer compared to how much you get out of it, I would say Hillbilly would be in Hernia tier. The amount it takes to learn this killer, he's the hardest killer in the game to play, in my opinion. He's extremely hard to learn curving properly. You have to know the hitbox of every loop, you know, how exactly you're going to curve. You need to actually have physical control of your mouse or controller as you're doing it. It's very, very hard to play. And you don't really get much more out of it than you would a stronger killer, despite the fact you're putting 10 times more effort in. However, I will say, Hillbilly attracts a certain type of player. The best way I can imagine Hillbilly players is they are all just basically super chill and like very high at all times. Most Hillbillies just don't give a shit. Hillbillies are just there to get sweet curves, and that's basically it. So for the average standard Hillbilly player, I'm gonna like average it out, because normally it would be like here or here. But it seems like the average Billy cares so little about the outcome of matches. And I think that's when you go and play Hillbilly, that's the mindset you basically have too. You're not expecting to go into it winning. You're expecting to hit some fat curves, and that's basically what most Billies do. So, because that seems to be like the standard win condition for almost every Hillbilly player I've ever encountered, I'm actually going to put them in the relaxed playstyle. And this is the only exception here because they have their own separate win condition. I said the criteria is based on how easy it is to get results of what you're trying to do out of the match. For Hillbilly players, they're just trying to curve. That's pretty much it. So for that, I'd say it's pretty relaxed. You're going to lose a lot of your games trying it, but I don't know, man. Something about Billy just strikes me as extremely relaxed because people just don't give a fuck at all when they're playing him. Nurse. Nurse is pretty much going to come down to how good are you at Nurse. If you're good at Nurse, it would be like up here. It's not even on the list. If you're bad at Nurse, it's down here. It's not even on the list. we're gonna say it's above average. Let's say for the future, you're above average at the kill. You're not a master, but you're above average. I'm still gonna say it's extremely chill. Nurse obviously is the strongest killer in the game. As soon as you learn basic blink distancing and how to deal with people trying to mind game you out of line of sight by blinking at the corner where you lost them, then using your second blink to adjust, it's just a cakewalk. It's extremely not stressful. If you're on lethal pursuit or something, your first down is going to be in 20 seconds. Like, it's very, very laid back playing nurse. As a survivor, you are fighting for your damn life. But for killer, it's basically you're just playing a separate game at that point, which is very, very laid back. Myers, I'm going to say is not hernia tier. I'm going to say he's frustrating and stressful tier. The reason is sometimes it can take a while to get out of your tier 1. I never usually have a problem with this, but I know a lot of people have that common complaint, so I'm going to reiterate it. That is a problem for most people. So getting out of tier 1 can be very, very annoying, especially if survivors know how to loop around things very tightly and you can't actually look at them long enough. So that can be very frustrating as well. Having your power able to physically run out is very frustrating as well. I would say the saving grace is you can down extremely good players within a second if you just have, like, Dead Rabbit or Monitor and Abuse and you're in tier 2. Your tear radius is so small that they basically have 1 second of reaction time before they can try to run from you. And if you have a 99% tier 3, you can just down people before the chase even starts. So that is something that alleviates stress against very good players, knowing that you can soft someone and then you can just basically 99 the better players and not have to worry about actually chasing them. Other than that, though, it is pretty stressful playing Myers. The slow start is very rough sometimes. Hag, I'm going to say Hag is like average. It's basically like Trapper, but just way stronger. So you still have to have the trap set up, but it's not quite as important. You can even set traps as you're chasing people. Obviously, they'll leave the loop, and now it's trapped for the next person. So, and you have way more traps than Trapper. So also, if you want to play in a very boring way, you can basically just proxy camp people, which is frankly very low stress because it works most of the time, and you don't really have to do anything as killer. You're just sitting nearby and wait for someone. So I would say Hag is not super stressful, but she is a trap-based killer that does require some setup. So it's not like you're just going to have all the time in the world. Once you've got your setup going, it's pretty easy from there. But the initial phase can be a little stressful. So I'd say she's right back in the middle. Doctor, I'm going to say is in the frustrating, stressful tier. The only reason he's not even lower is because Doctor can basically guarantee a hit at any loop, regardless of the skill of the player that you're chasing. He's one of the few killers that can guarantee a hit no matter what. It can just take a while because you use your power, inch closer, use your power, inch closer, use your power, inch closer, use your power, inch closer. Now you're at the pallet, they can't drop it, now you hit them. It might take you 15 seconds around one loop just to get it, but you can get a hit at every tile. There's no question of, am I going to get this or not? You're going to get it, it's just going to take a certain amount of time. So that's why he's not the most stressful, but still, playing Doctor nowadays is very frustrating. It was more frustrating when we had made for this. It's slightly less so now, but still. Things like ping can affect how his power is used. You can hit someone with a shock, they scream, but then they have bad ping, so on their screen they didn't actually scream yet, so then they can just vault after on your screen they've already screamed, and that can just be very, very obnoxious. So Doctor, pretty weak killer overall. Not quite as bad anymore because Made for This has been nerfed significantly, but yeah, overall, pretty stressful. Huntress, I'm actually going to say frustrating or stressful too. I say this is someone that played Huntress for many years. Huntress is extremely map dependent, so you might be stressed before the game even physically starts. Collision of objects is extremely annoying sometimes, knowing what you can and can't throw over. Sometimes the hitboxes just completely do not work in your favor. Any killer that is going to rely on DVD hitboxes is just going to inherently be frustrating. She's extremely rewarding once you actually get good with her, but the process of getting there, even to just an average or above average player, she can be extremely frustrating to play, but her highs are also very high too. She has extremely fun moments where you do cross maps and it just feels great. But for the most part, you're just fighting for your life with collision, your slower movement speed. It can be very frustrating playing Huntress. Bubba. You know what? I'm going to put Bubba in the extremely chill tier. Bubba has a lot of options for just whatever. Like if you truly just don't give a shit and you down a guy, you can just proxy camp them. Very, very low stress play style. But for the most part, Bubba's playstyle is basically just revving at pallets, and survivors have to pre-drop them, or they die. You know what? I'm taking him down a tier for one reason. I just thought of something. All of it's pretty chill. You basically play every pallet the same way. Not a big deal. You can get rid of pallets very easily. If you have Spirit, Fury, Enduring, you could just run through them, and it's a lose-lose scenario for the survivor. If they drop it, pallet breaks, they die. They don't drop it. You're pre-revving your chainsaw. It breaks instantly. So it's still really good. But there's one thing that does make Bubba not in the extremely chill tier, and that's using your power around jank collision can be very terrifying. Like if you're on, Yamoka's estate or something like that, and you're like around a bamboo, you're like, wait, shit, does this bamboo have collision? Does it not? Am I an Eyrie of Crows? Am I going to hit this invisible block of air here? As you're going around corners and stuff, it can be very stressful, knowing whether or not you're actually going to collide with that thing. Other than that, he's pretty smooth sailing, very, very low skill required killer. There are a couple of cool things you can do with his power, but for the most part, it's very easy to learn, very easy for new players to just get great power out of. It's just his collision sometimes and not colliding with walls while you're using the chainsaw sweep can be a little stressful. Freddy, I mean, I don't know. On the one hand, I would put Freddy here because the amount of effort you have to put in, you get nothing out of it. Freddy sucks. He's horrible. But at the same time, I feel like I have the mindset, how can you be disappointed if you expect nothing? Because when I play Freddy, I don't even expect to win. I just know he's so bad that if someone like makes me play Palette Freddy, I'm like, okay, I'm going to lose whatever. Let's just relax. So, for the most, I'm actually going to put him up a tier here because depressingly, I have no expectations going into a game with Freddy. So when I lose inevitably, I'm not even disappointed. I'm just like, yeah, that's about right. So it's still extremely hard to actually get wins with him, and I'll obviously bust my ass trying. But at the end of the day, if I lose to Freddy, I'm like, yeah, all right. Pig, I think, is sort of chill. Pig actually applies stress to the other survivors with their traps. And she has a little bit of meme potential with the whole snoot booping thing. Her power's not very complicated to use. It's basically sneak up to people and get some hits sometimes. You got some free game delay, but she's not really strong or anything. She's not hard to use. It's just a very average standard killer, in my opinion. Clown, I'm going to say, is probably standard as well. He, again, is not super strong, but he's pretty consistent at getting hits that loops even against good players, so actually getting hits is not super stressful. His map control is pretty weak, honestly. But if you get, like, Save the Best for Last and Rapid Brutality on him, it's actually pretty smooth sailing in terms of, like, downing people with Clown, so I'd say he's pretty average. Nothing super frustrating about his power. It works on most maps and things like that, so you're always going to have a pretty standard game playing as Clown. Spirit, I'm going to say, is relaxed but not extremely chill. The reason she's not extremely chill is because sounds in DBD can sometimes be pretty annoying, and you might not hear people even though you should definitely be hearing them. But for the most part, Spirit mostly controls every chase. Even just an above average Spirit is going to get hits at most loops, even if they can hear which direction you're coming. Doesn't really matter. You move twice as fast as them, so it's pretty easy to play Spirit for the result you get out of it. It's just sounds sometimes can be kind of annoying and frustrating. Legion players, I feel like, are almost like Billy players. They just like going around stabbing people. I'm going to say Legion is going to be a standard kind of killer as well in terms of stress. He's not very map dependent at all. They can just sort of do whatever on any map. They put slowdown on for relatively low effort. Pretty much the only stressful thing you have to worry about is getting stunned while in your power. So you play Legion chicken at the pallet for a little while. Not a big deal. I'd say Legion's just pretty average. I'm never really stressed or enjoying myself when I'm playing Legion, so pretty average. Plague. I'm going to say Plague is... Plague's an interesting one because it depends entirely how the survivors play against you. If they don't ever cleanse... Because then... I'm gonna say higher end of standard. If they don't cleanse, then you can proxy camp basically for free. That's the strength of Plague, unfortunately, is that if the survivor team decides to deny you your corrupt purge and they don't cleanse, it means they're all injured and no one can really save someone you're proxy camping. So it ends up someone has to do it at some point, and that's how you pressure people into using the Fountains as Plague. So all that's pretty low stress. I will say using her power though can be kind of frustrating. Sometimes you will have the beads hit them directly in the face and nothing happens, so that's going to bump her down for being relaxed. But overall, she's a very good killer that can control the tide of the game pretty well. So I'd say standard, higher end of standard is good for her. Ghostface. Ghostface is kind of like a meme. I don't know. You know what? I'm going to say Ghostface is under relaxed playstyle. I never really feel like I'm stressed playing Ghostface. Even if I'm losing, I just think he's so silly. Like every time I see a stupid Ghostface leaning around a corner, I'm like, this is dumb. But like in an endearing way. I will say playing Ghostface can be both frustrating and relieving in the same path when it comes to getting actually revealed. So you can be seen through walls, but other times survivors can be like this and they're not revealing you. So I'm going to say that cancels each other out. And for the most part, we just have a pretty low effort, easy to play stealth killer that's good at getting downs, kind of like Myers, but without the stress of the slow buildup or anything like that. So overall, I'd say Ghostface is bottom end of relaxed. Demogorgon, I'm going to say, is, in my opinion, extremely chill. There's not much to his power. You ready his power at a pallet. They drop the pallet, you use it. If you don't drop it, you use your power. It's pretty low effort. And yeah, again, there's a couple of things you can do, knowing exactly how the conical hitbox works, knowing the exact distance, knowing the exact time you have to charge to get that max distance. But for the most part, Demogorgon is a very easy killer to play. He's fairly easy to master too, to be honest. His portals alleviate some map control. And I don't know, whenever I play Demo, like, you'll notice all my favorite killers are low stress killers, except Nurse. You're just not really ever, I don't know. I never really feel stressed when I'm playing Demogorgon, because even if I end up losing, I don't know, like, what I have to do, there's not much expected of me. I just ready my power at windows or palace, and then I guess the most stressful thing is not wanting someone to fake a window and you hit the window instead, oof, or something like that. For the most part, I don't know, he's just a very chill killer. Oni, I'm going to say, is probably standard. When you get your power up, he is extremely chill because he can just destroy the entire team in seconds. But against very good teams that do not give you an early hit and play very safe, he can be very stressful. So I'm going to basically average him right down there in the middle. Deathslinger, from me personally, is going to be in the frustrating or stressful tier. He's not super easy to play. He's a harder projectile to hit than like Huntress. And sometimes even when you do get a good shot, there's something in the way. There's a teammate blocking. There's just sometimes when I play Deathslinger, I'll get an amazing shot and get nothing out of it. And that feels terrible. That's probably the main reason I don't like Deathslinger. Whereas with Huntress, if I do an amazing shot, they're damaged or they're down. That's it. There's no other way they can really change the outcome of that unless they have endurance or something. With Deathslinger, sometimes I get the same exact amazing shot and I get nothing out of it, and that sucks. He's also going to be map dependent, kind of like Huntress is, so I'm not a huge fan of actually playing Deathslinger. Pyramid Head, I'd say, is pretty standard. He can be kind of frustrating to play with his power, but you can be as boring or fun as you want with that killer. You can basically use your power only for free zoning and then just get M1s, which I find boring, or you can actually try to go for through-the-wall shots with double range add-ons, which is very fun, but can be frustrating as well because they're a lot easier to juke and things like that. Overall, he's a pretty strong killer. He can actually tunnel surprisingly well. So he's just very average, in my opinion. Blight is definitely going to be extremely chill. You have to struggle to lose with Blight against your average skilled opponent. And even if you are going against better players, he just has the most busted add-ons in the game to circumvent that skill gap. You can be terrible at Blight, throw on Compound 33, and you just barrel through pallets as they don't exist, and then you basically just get M1s with them. So Blight is definitely going to be a low stress killer to play because although he's not exactly easy to master, you can basically just circumvent that entirely with add-ons and not have to learn shit. So his add-ons make him in the extremely chill area. Twins, I'm going to say, is... God. I don't play enough twins, so I'm just going to put them here. I don't think she's hernia tier, because at least Victor can get downs pretty quick, but Twins has a lot of micromanaging. You got to remember where Charlotte is. You have to remember where you left Victor. You have to know how quickly you can switch back, where, when you switch, you're going to be in relation to the previous character that you were just playing. You have to worry about actually hitting your leaps as Victor. You have to get out of kick. You know what? Executive decision. Twins has a lot of shit you have to worry about, honestly. The gen collision for Victor, too. There's a lot going on there. I don't play Twins. She is stressful. Trickster, I'm going to go towards average. He's sort of map dependent like Deathslinger and Huntress, but he's extremely good at camping. So if you just want to do that kind of playstyle, again, very low stress playstyle. I'm not saying these are good or things you should be doing. I'm just saying if you do have these options, I have to talk about them. He's very, very good at camping and tunneling. So that can be very low stress for the killer. Downing people is just a matter of time, basically, with Trickster. You're eventually going to down someone. So overall, you still have to aim stuff, but you're pretty much guaranteed to down someone. And then when you have main event, camping is absurdly easy. So I'm going to say he's about average. Nemesis. Nemesis, I honestly find to be... I'm going to say top of standard as well. Getting to tier 2 is the most stressful part of the game. You need to get that tier 2 tentacle, so you have the pallet breaking potential. Before that, it's actually kind of a nightmare playing him. But a lot of the time, you have zombies that will alleviate some pressure for you. And once you do have tier 2, loops become pretty damn quick. They have to drop the pallet when you're out of sight, and you can break it very quickly, or they have to basically 50-50 when you run through the pallet. So it ends up being in the Nemesis' favor quite a bit. It's just getting out of that tier 1 can be a little stressful, but once you have that, it's pretty easy to play every loop. You can hit at windows, you can hit at pallets, things like that, so it becomes a lot more simple to play. Pinhead, I'm going to say frustrating and stressful tier. And the reason is, it's sometimes really hard to actually hit Pinhead's power, like actually like navigating a really good curve of the chain. A lot of the time what most Pinheads do is they spawn the chain right on top of you and just press M1, almost like hitting a nurse blink at that point. But a lot of times you will hit an extremely good shot and then just get nothing because there's 3 walls that immediately break the chains. Even if you have impaling wire, the new chains that spawn in might get broken by another wall. A lot of times I'll use Pinhead's power and they're actually now further away than if I just didn't stop at all. And that is extremely frustrating. Sometimes people holding the box out of out of a very long distance, and they sometimes will, organize it so when you are chasing someone, then they will pick up the box, and you have to go, do I abandon this chase of the guy I'm about to down to stop the box from being solved? So there's like a lot of things you have to worry about with Pinhead, and I feel like you don't get too much out of it. The one saving grace is that when you do actually have chain hunt happening, it does alleviate a lot of stress because people are occupied for quite some time. Artist. I'm going to say artist is pretty damn relaxed. A good artist is a nightmare to go against, and you can actually benefit very heavily from perks like Dead Man Switch, which a lot of killers can't really benefit from. Being able to see where people are from across the map, and not only that, and pressure them and get them off gens from across the map, means she can maintain pressure at all times, which means she's going to be having a more relaxed playstyle. In terms of chases, you can play her the boring way by just aiming a crow at the loop and forcing them to run back into it. Or you can do the more interesting playstyle where you shoot them once to target them through a wall, and then you basically shotgun them through the next wall they're at. That's kind of what I prefer doing. But she has a lot of playstyles. She is very strong, but she's also very underplayed too. And I don't really know the reason why. Maybe people find her hard to play, and that's completely fine. But I find her to be pretty relaxed. Like, I'm never really stressing at all when I play as Artist. And honestly, I get to do some pretty cool map-wide shots that I love doing. So Artist falls under relaxed for me. Sadako, I'm going to say, goes under frustrating or stressful. Because basically the main way you try to win with Sadako is getting condemns on people because her chase power is pretty terrible, to be honest. So you have to try to get condemns on people and trying to keep track of who has what stack of condemn, because you have to pay attention and keep count in your head because you can't see the level of condemn they have on their icons or anything like that. So you have a lot to pay attention to there. You have to know which actual TVs they're going to be near so you can cut them off before they can grab a tape or put it in. Basically, you have to spend a lot of time hounding one guy. So there's a lot to go over when you're playing the killer, and it's a lot to juggle the whole condemn thing. You have to worry about slugging too sometimes. So there's definitely a lot going on there, and you don't really get much out of her if you're not doing that. So that's why I think she is frustrating, stressful to play. Dredge, I would put higher, but I'm actually going to put lower here for the main reason that I find locked lockers to be incredibly You know what? I'm actually going to put him down here one. I find locked lockers to be so frustrating. It's the main reason I don't even play Dredge. Now, his anti-loot power is pretty consistent, so that's going to be not very stressful at all. But the locked lockers in Nightfall is such a mood killer, in my opinion. Like, you can have the best cutoff ever. You know exactly which locker they're about to go to. It's in Nightfall. You teleport to the locker, you pop out, and then it's locked. And now they just get away. Nothing feels worse than using your power correctly and then just getting countered because the survivor spent half a second locking that locker. Even if it's not the locker next to it, if it's connected, you always go to the locked locker. It's just so frustrating. For that reason alone, I find Dredge to be extremely frustrating killer to play. Because even if it seems like I do everything right, sometimes if the locker's locked, I still don't get anything out of it. Yeah, sure, then you can break the locker, but now all the distance you would have gained is now gone, and that just sucks. I like getting rewarded for making the good play, and locked lockers make that feel terrible sometimes. Wesker is going to be an extremely chill tier for me. He's an extremely good killer. He has built-in slowdown. His power is fairly easy to use, but also has a high skill cap if you want to master it. He's good at almost every loop in the game. He is not very map dependent whatsoever. All these things, I feel like I don't need to say why so many people play Wesker. It's for these reasons. He's pretty low stress to play. Knight, honestly, is pretty low stress too. I'm going to put him kind of right in the middle. The low stress is that half the time your character is disabled because he's broken, and the other time is he's not particularly strong. He's just good at getting individual hits on people. So you still might end up losing games, which could be stressful, but actually using his power is very low stress. Basically, you just go to one end of the loop, pop out the guard on the other. Survivor's going to have to leave the loop or get hit. If they're in a corner, they can't do anything. That's pretty much the standard gameplay for Night. Now you can do some more advanced things, like actually try to control generators while you're chasing somebody else and splitting pressure like that. That also works too. That is I think, more stressful playstyle because more things are going on. But for the most part, he's pretty average. There's not much to him. Skull Merchant, honestly, in terms of playing her, I have to say she's probably pretty relaxed. It's really just not much to her. You just put drones up in loops, and when survivors run there, they get hit, or they leave the loop and then they get out, you can hit them again. I don't know. There's really not much to her. She's probably the easiest killer in the game to actually play. So if we're going to have the easiest killer in the game to play, they have to fall under the relaxed playstyle. The only downside is she's not super incredibly strong, so she doesn't go under extremely chill. But again, very easy to play, gets results for doing almost nothing. So yeah, very relaxed killer. Singularity, without a doubt, is Hernia tier. He's a very strong killer. I think he's like top of B tier, bottom of A tier, but the amount of effort that goes into playing Singularity is just not equal to, like, you know, Blight or Nurse for what they get out of it. You have to set up cameras in such a way that they have line of sight of where people are going to be crossing. Then you have to switch to that camera when someone crosses. Then you have to point at them with the camera to tag that person. You have to switch back to Singularity. Then you have to get line of sight to that person. Then you have to teleport to them. Then you have to know when to have overclock be beneficial or run through the pallet or respect the pallet so you can kick it faster because they're going to pre-drop it. And all that going on, they might have an EMP, which makes you have to reset another one, which makes you have to... It's just so much stuff you have to do to get results of Singularity. But he is strong if you do all that stuff. So... that being said, the reason I stopped playing him is just like, when I'm playing DBD, I'm streaming it, I want to talk to my chat. I can't even do that when I'm playing Singularity. I'm basically like doing that just Julia Roberts fucking meme with the math in front of my head. There's just so much stuff happening that I just, yeah, he is very, very stressful to play for the rewards that you get from him. But he's good. Xenomorph, I'd say he's probably pretty standard. Actually, no, I'm going to say Xenomorph's pretty relaxed. I still don't think turrets are much of a threat at all. The only time they're a threat is if there's two of them stacked on top of each other. But even so, you can go back in a tunnel and get your power back in 5 seconds. So like it's not even a big deal if you get knocked out of your power. I'm honestly surprised we don't see that many Xenomorphs anymore, considering he's extremely strong, has very little chase counterplay, and he's not particularly hard to play either. I guess getting the tentacle and learning how to do the downward slash so you can hit over loops does take some skill. That's pretty much it, though. You can get your power back instantly. Turrets are not much of a factor whatsoever. And overall, he's just pretty solid the entire game. So, yeah, pretty relaxed. Chucky, I'm going to say, is pretty relaxed, too. Chucky has a very, very safe play style with stealth, getting in close, and then getting a hit with slice and dice. Even if you just want to do the low-skill method of playing Chucky, which is scampering over pallet, and then slice and dice, that's also something you can do, which makes it even less stressful. He's strong overall. He's pretty much guaranteed to get hits at most tiles, which makes him not stressful. And then the stealth ensures that he can get relatively close. Obviously not touching distance because you can start to hear him laugh, but you can get very close to people before the chase starts, meaning the chases start mostly on your terms. So not a very stressful killer to play. But for the most part, there you go. That is the DBD killer stress tier list overall. Curious to hear what you guys think about my opinions. Obviously, they will change a bit because we play killers a bit differently or have different expectations. This is all just subjective stuff. So that's mine. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching.